from Deep Fried Studios in downtown Mobile, Alabama. Welcome to Wealth and Waves, a show dedicated to all you busy folks out there making it happen along the Gulf Coast. To our listeners in New Orleans, Destin, Mobile, Santa Rosa Beach, Gulfport, Pensacola, and Biloxi. And of course, we can't fail to mention our home base of Fairhope over on the Eastern Shore. If you're listening, you're plugged into your work, you're plugged into your family, your faith, and you have found your show. I'm your host, Josh Null, along with my co-host, Will Steih. We will be taking a deep dive into how to build wealth, how to protect wealth, and how to have a little fun enjoying that wealth along our beautiful part of the Gulf Coast. Will and I will be discussing investment and lifestyle topics that affect our fellow busy business owners, our entrepreneurs, our sole proprietors, and any of you successful professionals out there that are tuning in. Our topic today is going to be non-qualified deferred compensation. That's a big, long word with a lot of vowels in it. It's sometimes referred to as a golden handcuffs. But Will, I think you have a pretty cool description of it that I have stolen from you like I've done so many other things. How do you refer to non-qualified deferred compensation?
Josh, I believe you're referring to the phrase reverse pink slip.
Bingo. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. So reverse pink slip, that was something that you had brought to my attention. We both operate under the Gulf Coast Financial Advisors branding down here along the Gulf Coast. Your origins are coming down from Nashville and running an office up there. And while down here, we tend to have a pretty tight labor market, we definitely don't have the population density of a Nashville. And I know there have been times with your particular clients that particularly in the construction industry, as that city has grown crazy. I grew up about 4 hours to the west of it. So I've seen it grow from, half the size of Memphis to probably 3 times the size of Memphis now, wherever it is. But the point of that is the construction industry is pretty competitive and pretty tight. So what I'd like to do to kick off is let's talk about, what is non-qualified deferred comp, and how did the tight labor market kind of play into the fact that you've had to dive deeper on this to help some of your clients keep some of their key talent around versus heading to the competitor across the street. So let's start with that.
Well, let's appreciate the tee up for that. And let's start with a challenge. Let's start with a conversation I was having with a business owner who basically, by way of their CFO, came to me and said, listen, here's the deal. We have a strong group of employees. We've got, particularly in the project management area, they're really hard to find. We think we pay them well. They're nearly 6 figures of compensation. However, a few decided to get together and they thought they could do it better than we could as a team. And they decided to start their own team. And with that, there was the threat of taking away existing customers and clients. And we're talking about some sizable dollars here in terms of projects and different things and the staffing of all those things that a business owner has to deal with. It always looks easier to those that are still the employee rather than the business owner. Business owners have a hard time sleeping at night some days with making payroll. Like they're the last one to get paid.
That's right.
And in this case, these 3 project managers decide they're going to walk away and go start their own deal and come back and try to pilfer away that roster of clients. So it's with that as a backdrop. That's one of the challenges that business owners face is, hey, I'm trying to grow talent, I'm trying to find talent, grow it, compensate it fairly, and then keep it. And one of the challenges, and the first thing as I was asking that, I kind of looked at business owners like, I'm taking it that you didn't have a non-solicitation, non-compete document in place. It's like, no, exactly. That's what the first order of business was. We called our attorney and said, yeah, today we've got to get this thing drafted and taken care of. Now, the challenge with that is if you're going to go and ask somebody to commit themselves to your organization in such a way and to effectively, let's say for a 2-year period, cut off their path or exit, what that means is that you're basically going to say, hey, I'm going to hold this stick over your head. I'm going to hit you with it if you don't sign this.
Right.
Well, that's kind of a tough thing for some to digest, and one would expect that, human nature being what it is. So what we often encourage the business owner, he or she, is to say, why don't we also, at the same time you're going to put the stick in front of them, wave a carrot? And the carrot would look like in this case, the long word is non-qualified deferred compensation, but essentially an opportunity. Another way to phrase it would be golden handcuffs. You're trying to create a reward system for that employee so that they're going to be incentivized. They're going to be inspired to stay. They're going to want to stay for reasons that are financially impacting them and their family. The stick aspect of, hey, we're threatening you with a lawsuit. We're going to threaten you with a course of action where you're going to try to take away our business. That's essential for sure. It's important, but in order to cross that bridge, oftentimes business owners find that the medicine goes down easier when they combine the benefits or the incentive of a carrot.
Well, we've actually seen that in real practice with you and I work in particular cases. It actually was a very enjoyable conversation, right? Like you said, the medicine went down a lot easier. And plus, too, I think that's a sign of respect by the employer saying, hey, we're recognizing the fact that you're a key contributor to this organization. You have value, and I don't want to lose you. So I'm gonna come at this both ways, both from a contract document standpoint, but also from the carrot side, where additional compensation. So, Will, what I want to talk about is, non-qualified deferred comp is one. It's a big nerdy word, right? So let's dissect it. I mean, at its root, it just means that compensation that has been earned by the employee, but not yet received from the employer, right? I mean, that's its root. Non-qualified is a term meaning that it sits outside of a qualified plan. What's a qualified plan? We're not going to go into all the variations, but if you have a 401k plan, you have a qualified plan. There's tax preferential treatment inside that plan. Then the origins of the non-qualified deferred compensation plan, really in the beginnings, I think, and we've got a case study on our website where you had highly compensated employees, HCEs, someone making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. If they're maxing out their 401k contribution, that it only represents a really, really small percentage of their overall income load. So not only do they have kind of an additional tax load, but if they're trying to fund a similar type lifestyle and retirement based on a very small percentage of their current income, that's going to be tough. The math gets difficult. So the non-qualified deferred comp, was a way for how can we provide additional compensation above and beyond the normal compensation we're giving this person, and also how is there a way to defer some of this so that, as opposed to, well, I'm going to kick it to you now, but as opposed to just saying, hey Bob, you're really valuable to us, we're going to give you a $2 an hour raise, and Bob says, well, that's great. Inside he's thinking, you cheapskates, and he walks across the road and they give him a $3 an hour raise, right? So you kind of take it away where you're becoming more of a team member with that person. And what I want to ask you, Will, is as the non-qualified deferred comp and the uses have evolved over the years, what is a good case study for somebody that's looking to keep their high producing employees by using the non-qualified deferred comp?
Well, first of all, I'd go back to this idea of non-qualified. So for any business owner, I said, so here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is this is a tool that works. This is a tool that Fortune 500 companies have long used. We're finding it down to the medium-sized company or smaller-sized employer market. And again, those sizes are more driven by the numbers of people on the sheer count of full-time W-2 employees. But the more important point of that is that, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Employer, you're going to defer taking a deduction for these dollars. So there's not an immediate tax deduction to the employer. That's an important concept that the business owner needs to understand. And the reason for that is that the employees have yet to take what's called constructive receipt. And by that means the employee has yet to take possession of it. They don't own it just yet, which has some implications. So let's think about that for a second. So the employee doesn't own it yet. They don't recognize it as income. It's not taxable to them yet. Why is that? Well, it's because the business owner still holds the purse strings. They still, let's just say we used a 5-year vesting schedule. Vesting means what are you entitled to? So the owner could say, hey, listen, we're going to establish a plan today. And at some point in the future, 5 years from now, you will become vested. Sometimes we refer to it as a cliff. You will be 100% vested in these contributions I'm going to make on your behalf each year for the next 5 years. That's where the idea of golden handcuffs comes in play. So for that employee, he or she's going to say, no, wait a second, I need to think about this. 3 years from now, one of those corporate recruiters may come calling on me, waving the extra $2 an hour at me or some promise of some greener pasture. But they're really going to need to consider, now, wait a second, I may be walking away from, let's say it's a $25,000 annual contribution. They're going to be walking away from $75,000 that's already been put in, plus the next $50,000 that's going to get put in. It really makes an impact on people's mindset as to how likely are they to entertain an offer with any seriousness.
Okay. Well, so a lot of listeners, particularly our sophisticated business owners that maybe gone through similar exercises, are going to hear what you and I just said, and they're probably going to have the term key person, what used to be called key man coverage, kind of pop to their brain. Let's talk a little bit about that, because they are kissing cousins in some regard. A key person coverage at its root, again, to boil it down to its most base element, is typically an insurance policy put on a key producer or key member of your organization that in the event of them passing away unexpectedly prematurely or becoming disabled prematurely, there's a financial dollar amount associated with that paid by the insurance company to the beneficiary that is intended to at least soften the blow somewhat of losing that key person. Now, typically, key person, business owner goes out, buys an insurance policy. It's kind of done with after-tax dollars. You just put it on. Hopefully, nothing ever comes of it. It serves its purpose. A lot of times, they fund it with term, and off they go. But if you don't mind, I'm going to kick it to you on. Let's talk about how does key person can we segue into a non-qualified deferred comp way to where the thing's got maybe a little bit more legs underneath it, a little longer standing? Does that make sense?
So to revisit the comment, it does, Josh. So to revisit what I'd made comment of earlier, and that is if the employer still owns the policy,
yep,
and there is some vesting associated with the value of that policy, these things can be designed in such a way that the business owner or the entity can benefit from in the case you're talking about, the instrument would be a life insurance policy. Should heaven forbid something happens to this key person, maybe it's the superstar salesperson or it's some business that's oriented around a particular aspect that somebody really brings to the table that's hard to find anywhere else. So we have the aspect of the key person benefit there. So the employer retains benefits in the policy, and also over time, the person in question, the key employee, can also accrue benefits, the positive value of, in this case, we're talking about cash value building up within the policy itself. So I think that really, Josh, makes an interesting pivot to, there are ways to deal with this, and it doesn't necessarily involve a life insurance policy. There are many reasons why it's attractive to business owners and why they should consider it, but you simply could set aside cash. If you said, listen, I'm going to set aside cash for you, employee, for some date in the future. Okay, the challenge is these days, what are you going to realize on your cash from an interest or yield perspective? What are the tax implications for anything growth? If you decide to put that in an investment account and try to grow it year by year, there's capital gains tax that's going to be incurred as you move it along. It is a corporate asset of the entity itself. So cash, a sinking fund, which kind of relates to the idea of the cash. And then ultimately, most business owners kind of will circle back to a properly structured cash value oriented life insurance policy, which has the benefits of both the protection against the loss that a business may suffer if that key employee is no longer available. And then also it gives the key employee the ability to build up some value that down the road, as you make the point, oftentimes this value becomes a supplement for them as a retirement income source above and beyond what the entity's also doing from an employer 401k standpoint.
Right. So I think, Will, to kind of sum up the conversation on non-qualified deferred comp, if you're an industry that's competitive or reasonably competitive, you've got a key producer and you want to do something, you've been in business long enough to know that a lot of times if you just throw extra dollars per hour or per week or even per year at the problem, that tends to have like a sugar high effect. It's really exciting in the beginning, but then the effect wears off pretty quick. If you got somebody that you're looking, hey, they've been with me for a while, and they're key to the long-term success of this business. What's something I can do that has some stickiness to it where we both benefit from it? And again, I think that's why non-qualified deferred comps often called the golden handcuffs, because, it's intended to hopefully create some, John, you have to cut that part. I lost my train of thought. Cut. I lost the word, Will. A lot.
Incentive?
No.
Motivation, inspiration?
Some loyalty. So the non-qualified deferred comp is really intended to hopefully create some loyalty to the organization. And then there's a reward for that loyalty. It's deferred. It's not deferred forever. Eventually they're going to receive that compensation. So we'll want to kick it to you for any final thoughts. And then as I tend to do, you and I, for the folks that are joining us and getting to know Will and I, we are definitely, we're a full glass. Now, sometimes I'm the one that's half full and he's half empty, but we come together and we always make it happen.
Josh, that's only partly. Usually Josh is being generous in that. I am the one that looks at things as being half empty. Like, where'd the other half go? I want to know who took it. Where did it happen? And so for business owners, rest assured, my licensed CPA background will shine through, because I will think of every reason why something won't work. And Josh will have the think, well, but what if it goes this direction? Right. So we try to balance each other out from that perspective.
And I think it works great. So, and what I was going to say on the non-qualified deferred comp, there are some things that you want to consider if you're looking at this. It is not protected by the ERISA Act, Employee Retirement Security Act, like a 401k would be. If the business owner were to declare bankruptcy, it's still considered part of the company's assets and could be exposed to their creditors. So there's always some things. I mean, you want
You
to
sound like me.
I know it.
That's great.
Gosh. Yeah, but I mean, there's things you want to lay on the table so you have a fully formed. None of this stuff is a golden ticket, right? It's all about you have something, a thing that you're trying to solve. What's the right tool to put to work to solve the problem? So, with that, Will, you got any final thoughts?
Most of those are good thoughts, Josh. Just on balance, what we find are employers who want to foster that spirit of loyalty. It's always an interesting, as we engage with the employee on the employee side of the fence, and that's part of our role too, is to say, hey, we're trying to help the employer construct this design and tailor it for their situation. And we're also going to be part of the communication back to the employee to help explain to them what in fact is being done for them. And it's an exciting thing to be able to sit down with a 55-year-old and say, hey, listen, here's what the employer is going to propose and here's how it's going to shake out. The person says, that's really cool. Wow. They're going to do that for me. And when the light bulb goes on and you see the employee's expression, how they're realizing it, the impact it's going to make on their family, this is where, again, to use out of Josh's page, we have faith that this is going to work out for all concerned, because that's where we're fostering loyalty. And it makes the employer all the more glad to, hey, you know what, you're going to have to stroke a check. And you're not going to get a deduction now for it. That will come later. And certainly we'd explain it to the business owner. But that's an exciting thing to see happen, is when you have you're kind of seeing people get married in a way that's going to benefit both, for sure.
100%. Well put, Will. So listeners, if you think, or if you're interested in this concept, or you think this might apply to your business situation, we can help. You can reach out to us by calling 251-327-2124. You can always leave a message there if you don't reach us. Plus, you can visit GulfCoastFA.com. That's Gulf Coast FA as in financialadvisor.com. Now, while you're there, you can do a couple of things. One, go to our Business Owners Center. You will see all kinds of great information on this topic, non-qualified deferred comp. You also can see some related topics with business owners, cash balance plans, and things like that. You can also set an appointment with us using our Calendly app while you're there. So in conclusion, I want to thank our producer, Johnny Gwynn, here again in Deep Fried Studios, downtown Mobile. I want to thank my co-host, Will Steih, doing a great job as always. And then lastly, and as important as always, thank you all that have been listening, those who have joined us on our journey and the continued journey that we have ahead of us. Thank you for listening. This has been Wealth in Waves.